Good morning. Today we have a very short lesson. We're going to talk about the other buildings that Solomon built about the same time he built the temple. Our reading today is 1 Kings 7, 1 through 12. That's it. Just 1 Kings 7, 1 through 12, 5 little verses. So pause me, 1 Kings 7, 1 through 12. Okay, so it took 7 years to build the temple, and it took 13 years to build the palace. So there's lots of speculation on why did Solomon think he was more worthy than God, or the palace was bigger, almost twice as big as the temple. Is that the reason why? Or was he just not in as big a hurry? Or did he not feel the same sense of urgency since it was for him, or the temple being for God? So there's any number of possible explanations. We don't know, but it took 13 years, and it was almost twice as big. This palace, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what it consisted of, and when you read various commentators, they all have a different opinion. The palace of the forest of Lebanon could have been the palace itself, or it could have been a kind of a compound, because there was a hall of justice, which was also known as the throne room, and there was a palace for Solomon to live, and some speculate that might have been even outside Jerusalem. And then there was a palace for Pharaoh's daughter. So this title, the Palace of the Forest of Lebanon, is misleading, because the Forest of Lebanon, of course, is outside. Lebanon is pretty far away. So is it just because it had all these cedars from Lebanon that it was called that? Again, nobody really knows. It was a big area. This palace for Pharaoh's daughter, Pharaoh was the first wife, and sometimes the first wife was in charge of the harem. So this building could have actually been Pharaoh's daughter's, his first wife, her own palace, or it could have been a palace for the entire harem. In those days, it was customary for the wives and concubines to live separately and raise their kids separately. So most people think that's kind of what it was. This complex, however it was laid out, the buildings all together or separated, were decorated. They had high-grade stone, and they did use saws. Remember, in the temple there were no cutting; everything was done off-site. Well, for the palace, they did use saws, and they used the cedar beams, and they used dressed stone. So this high-grade stone is like granite or quartz. So we're talking about floors and walls being granite. So you can imagine how elaborate this was. The whole complex was very elaborate and very costly. And again, we'll read later about slave labor. So these things don't come cheap to Solomon, even though he's got tons and tons of money. That's our lesson for today. Be careful what you ask for and the cost it is to you. See you tomorrow.